This is A, Dementia 1A. So backing up in discussing the advanced directives, this is the update, the follow-up to that. So there are two pieces of information that are typically witnessed and signed when going into a facility. One is the advanced directives. You do want to keep that current. So I addressed previously, it's going to tie into your care plan, and it can be expressed in a way that when you know that your diagnosis is early stage dementia and that you are not deemed incompetent, that you are able to put in your advanced directives what your intentions are in your decline. So there's that. And then there is also something that is witnessed. And by witnessed, I mean it is typically done by two witnesses. They are non-family. It may be a person at the facility, both people from the facility, maybe two people that you choose. It may be people that are part of your medical team, might be the clinic, might be something that social work does, but it will go into the record along with the advance directive to your physician, your primary physician. And this is when your primary diagnosis is addressing that you will eventually need memory care. So this can even be upgraded at a later point. So what you're doing is addressing it in advance. You're indicating what your care plan is now. And the second part of those materials that need witnessing is called the living will. Now, heads up, I repeated this before. People tend to think end stage. So when they're going into a facility, older people refer to it as being committed. You're not committed. You are competent when you go in. You are empowered to make your decisions in the event of. So ideally, going back to the titles of the non-family family, a medical power of healthcare. And that would be a person that would help assist with those decisions with your physician. There can be physicians in the facility, or you can use your primary physician and you're an assisted and not in memory care yet. So it's called the living will. It has nothing to do with your financial aspects. Again, it is witnessed as you answer 3 questions that typically all states will address this. It is about the vegetative state. So in an emergency, do you want to be on a feeding tube? And the second one is do you want to be on any machinery that's life sustaining if you're deemed a vegetative state? And then if you're deemed a vegetative state, besides the life sustaining equipment, do you want the feeding tube? So there's critical care decision, and then there's basically unable to make that determination at the time. So you do it in advance. That is what the living will is. Not to be confused with the information that you provide about being a donor. And that question may be as part of the living will, it may be separate from that. So you are going to address critical things. You are not necessarily, you're not incompetent. You're not talking about end stage. Incompetency is not end stage. This is addressing critical care. And I need to add one more point. They made it very clear to me. Now, in a facility, you may be wearing a monitor, and it's basically a button so that the staff can be called. They used to have the little pull cords in the rooms. They'd have lights, whatever, however they would normally do that. You have this on your person. It does not have to do with you exiting or entering the building. It is for you to call the staff to assist you for whatever reason. So what they address, in addition to all those other questions, is, sorry, I'm tired. They're there to assist you, and that doesn't make you deemed incompetent because you're wearing this device. It's simply a means of communication. Okay. The second part of that is if you have originally, prior to being in assisted living, been wearing a mini guardian. Now, this is the around the neck or on the wrist. It is the device that calls whomever your emergency contact people are. The mini guardian has got a mini tracker in there that is linked because they have your phone number. So it's linked into your phone. And then if you activate an additional feature, it can allow them within 20 miles, I believe, of where your phone number and address are. So you would go on an outing with somebody. They don't know what to do. You're not well. You're not calling an ambulance, but it's pretty concerning to them. And then you may or may not carry a phone with you. So if you're with a person, you don't have a phone, they don't know your contact information. Perfect. I refer to it as the panic button. So now this is different than the getting assistance. So I want you to be very clear about that. In a facility, when you use their button, they come to assist you. In the event it is an emergency scenario, they will not be obligated to transport you out of the facility you're in. On your behalf, you can put in your care plan, in your advance directives, wherever it is deemed appropriate, which hospital you choose to be transported to, and they will do the 911. The ambulance will transport you to the information that you've put in your advance directives. So in the event of an emergency, you are directing them when you leave their facility, and the EMTs arrive there where you're going. And then from that point out, all those decisions made outside their facility, again, you've addressed that in your advance directives. It's on file with your physician. Your primary physician would get a call from the staff at the hospital, the emergency room or whatever. And then you go from there as to how you get brought back to assisted care if you're able to do that. If you come back, or say you need to stay there and be hospitalized and you're going to have a pending date of return, assisted is also for people that are post-surgery or post a critical event like that are able to be assisted by their staff. So then you'd be a different tier, probably different payment, and then the charge nurse in your unit would have additional duties that they would bill you for. Might be wound dressing, maybe whatever it is, when you return from hospitalization, whenever that might be. And then that's up to you who you're going to pre-authorize through HIPAA to be involved in your information, preferably your medical power healthcare, but you can sign a HIPAA release, again, to non-family or family. So I just wanted to touch base on that. So again, I'm covering advance directives. I'm covering the living will. These are the two documents that require two witnesses. That's according to most every state. And then the facilities are not directly involved other than to call the EMTs, and you go wherever you've indicated, and then whatever is advised through your physician in the return there, or if you're using the physicians at the facility, you make that arrangement, you return to whatever your wherever you're housed at, and then if you're getting additional care through a nurse or there, if they're able to do that, it'd be like basically you're returning home, essentially, and getting your additional care. So I thought this is pretty important. I think people get a little confused. The minute you say will, people kind of jump to the conclusion this is about finances. I don't really go into the financial aspect of it, hardly at all. But everything that I've described to this point does not require guardian ad litem or a legal guardianship. You are considered competent by the virtue of that you've made all these determinations in advance, and you've been witnessed as being able to understand what you have chosen in your best interest and empowerment. If you become incapacitated, doesn't mean that you become incompetent. You may be incapacitated due to whatever is, whatever the length of the debilitation is. So, again, I hope this helps everybody, and do it in baby steps. You do it in advanced planning, and you determine which persons have what role, and then it doesn't always require attorneys. As a medical power healthcare, that did not require an attorney to have that authorization given to me. It is a statement that goes into the medical file. Again, I'm going to cover one more aspect, and I don't want to do this separately, so I'm going to attach it onto here. If you choose in HIPAA that your records, whether they be in your medical charts, which are accessible online, or whether it's somebody unauthorized calling the physician to ask about your status, calling the hospital to ask about your status. The most current record, the updated record, if you are, for whatever your reasons are, excluding all or certain family members, or if Adult Protective Services has a reason to believe that it is your right to exercise, that you will choose to share that information when the time comes, yourself, in person, by phone, text, whatever, but that they don't get it in a roundabout way through institutions or doctors or physicians. You've removed that access to carry on discussions, to be part of your emergency tree. They are not people that are going to be always informed. And if that is easier for you, you feel like there's too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak, or too many people that are not on the same wavelength or cannot get consensus, you're empowered. You make those decisions. It doesn't have to be a group approval. If a person at some point is unable to fill those obligations, they will ask you, do you want to appoint a second? Do you want to have a second, like a primary and a secondary person? If you've only appointed one person and something makes it unable for them to fulfill that duty. And I have talked with physicians about, you're in a critical point, like how many calls are they going to, how many attempts would there be to reach you before they call the second person? And they said they do absolutely everything they possibly can to obtain a contact with you before they would defer to a second person on that list. So this would be something you should understand if you're choosing to keep your mini guardian and you have a call button when you're in your room, but you are assisted, so you leave the facility, say with family, friends, you're wearing your mini guardian. That feature, the way that I understood it, it does not call 911. It calls whomever is in your emergency contact, and they will do that. They're not obligated to reach out for ambulance calls. They are not reaching out to the ambulance to inform them which hospital your preference is to go to either. So other than being able to reach an area of a 20-mile radius around where your phone address and cell phone is linked to, whether it's you're carrying your cell phone or not, then you would want that information to not be tied to your monitor. But you could feel the reassurance that if your person is out, say at a facility, doesn't have their phone on them, and nobody really knows who they should call, they can at least point to their button that they're wearing on their lanyard. That call will be placed to the emergency contact people who have all those things set in place, the transportation. Sometimes they're false alarms. And those devices are very, very easy to indicate it's a false alarm because they're fall detectors. So you can use it as a panic button. You know, you're out somewhere and it doesn't have to do with fall. You're just feeling seriously not yourself and you need somebody right away to come to your side. So I call it the panic button, but it essentially works off of motion. And if, say, you took it like a lanyard, you took it off and a table was kind of far away and you swung it so that it lands and drops on that table, it's going to indicate a fall. It's a motion sensor. So it automatically gives you a message. It says, a fall has been detected. If this is a false alarm, just hit your button. And then you hit the button immediately and it goes, false alarm detected. If you don't do that, it will prompt again to say, do you need our assistance? Yes or no. If it's yes, then should we call your contacts? And that would be yes. So there you have it in a nutshell. I did indicate that when I'm in my own residence, I'm a faster talker. I'm a little bit louder. It wasn't my intention to have many pauses, but I'm hypervigilant, so I'm paying attention to what I'm hearing in different parts of the home I'm in if I'm recording outside of my home. So I hope that was not a big switch up in the pace, but I did want to get all this information down today since everything is fresh in my mind. Thank you. God bless. And again, baby steps. Everybody's here to support each other through the process. There's so much information about the stages of dementia, but there's not a lot of information about the process and the paperwork and the steps and the options. So the only option I didn't cover is what they call a senior community. And I have been involved in senior communities as well, but I'm not very comfortable in explaining what their processes are. I'll just describe it briefly because this is one of your living options. For example, the senior community living where I was at had a golf course, had its own housing complex, had its own dentist, had its own doctors, had its own condos, had its own people that came in and out, either for caregiving or housekeepers. And then it had an on-site memory care facility. So it's be when you are in assisted living, they'll refer to your unit that you rent as all inclusive. In this case, I would call it all encompassing. So for persons who want to maintain a household and have their family around them, and maybe one of the spouses is debilitated and the other isn't, or they both have different levels of needs, they want to resume living together in a home, and they're willing to be in a community. Other than describing that to you, that's at your discretion to basically ask the same kind of questions to them that you would ask of a caregiving agency or either living in a facility. And I couldn't tell you how insurance is incorporated into that or what the leasing arrangements are. So it's just one of the options that you have to look into, other than what I've already previously described. Thanks.